So let us understand about short-run equilibrium of a firm under monopolistic competition. A firm is in equilibrium when it maximizes its profits, that is when MR is equal to rising MC. Under monopolistic competition, the demand curve AR is downward sloping and more elastic compared to, to a monopoly firm. The degree of elasticity of the AR curve depends on number of the firms in the group. Larger the number of firms or more severe the competition, the greater the elasticity of demand. If the number of firms is small, demand tends to be relatively less elastic. Extent of product differentiation. If product differentiation is relatively weak, demand tends to be elastic. If product differentiation is prominently significant, then demand tends to be less elastic. So from this we can understand that as the number of firms increase, the elasticity of demand also keeps on changing. And if the firm is of smaller, the demand tends to be less elastic, because the demand in the market depends upon the size of the production or units of production. Then next we have extent of product differentiation. If product differentiation is weak, then demand tends to be elastic, but if product differentiation is prominently significant, then demand tends to be less elastic. In the above figure 3.9, RQ is the AR and BQ is the AC. Therefore, RB is SNP per unit of output. Total SNP is APRB for output level OQ. So this is the this is the APRB, that is the supernormal profit which the company shall have. Then in case of losses, in the above figure 3.10, the demand and cost situations are less favorable. Hence the firm incurs loss of BRU per unit of output and a total loss of ABRP for output level OQ. Case of normal profits, AR is equal to AC. In the figure 3.11, the cost and revenue conditions are such that the firm under monopolistic competition earns normal profits where AR is equal to AC, that is at output level OQ, RQ is equal to RQ. Thus, in the short run, a monopolistically competitive firm may either realize a supernormal profit or suffer losses or earn normal profits. In long run equilibrium of a firm under monopolistic competition, we have seen that the firms under monopolistic competition can earn supernormal profit in the short run, but in the long run such profits disappear. This is because with the entry of new firms in the industry, supply will increase, prices will fall and supernormal profits will be competed away from, and the firms will be earning only normal profits. If in the short run firms are realizing losses, then in the long run some firms will leave the industry so that the remaining firms will be earning normal profits. Further, in the long run equilibrium AR will be more elastic, that is flatter, since a large number of substitutes will be available in the long run. Thus, there is equilibrium in the long run when MC is equal to MR is equal to AR is equal to AC. This can be illustrated as follows. In the above diagram, the firm is in equilibrium at output OQ and price OP. In this case, AR is equal to LAC, hence there is normal profit. So this will be the curve for normal profits. Then non-price competition, product differentiation. A general class of products is differentiated if a basis exists for preferring goods of one seller to those of another. Such a basis for preference may be real and fancy, but it will cause differentiation of the product when such differentiation of the product exists, even if it is slight bias will be paired with sellers, not in a random fashion as in perfect competition, but according to their preferences. There are two bases of product differentiation. Differentiation may be based upon certain characteristics of the product itself, such as exclusive patented features, trademarks and trade names. peculiarities of the packages or wrappers, if any, or difference in quality, design, color, or style. Real qualitative differences like those of materials used, design, and workmanship are no doubt important means of differentiating products. But imaginary differences created through advertising, the use of attractive packets, the use of trademarks and brand names are more usual methods by which products are differentiated, even if physically they are identical or almost so. Differentiation may be based upon the conditions surrounding the sale of the product. This means that that the product is differentiated if the service is rendered in the process of selling the product by one seller or firm are not identical to those rendered by any other seller or firm. The conditions surrounding the sale of the product include the convenience of the seller's location, the general tone or character of his establishment, his way of doing business, his reputation for fair dealing, courtesy, efficiency, and all others which attach his customers either to himself or those employed by him. Product differentiation may range from strong to weak, but it influences the consumer's psychology and preferences or choice. Product differentiation, whether real or fancied, identifies the seller and confers on him a degree of monopoly power, which he can exploit well to capture a segment of the market. So, under non-price, that is product differentiation, non-price competition, we can understand that there shall be different products which shall be paired with each other, and sellers not in random fashion, but according to their preferences. So we can see a product differentiation in such type of competition. Then next we have product differentiation has two aspects. Product differentiation at a point of time. This aims at identifying the product of the seller from the product of rivals. Product development or quality variation over a period of time, over a long period of time. When sellers resort to the product competition, they adopt quality variation or improvement in the product. The product is adjusted more sensitively to the tastes and preferences of consumers, which ensures their strong patronage. By resorting to product improvement and giving a new brand name to it, the producer hopes to have a more inelastic demand for his product, and therefore the demand curve shifts to the right, but is more inelastic. Therefore, he can charge a higher price than what was charged for the old variety without losing patronage. For example, TV manufacturers making technical improvements in their sets, new editions of textbooks. Therefore, product differentiation is a facet of non-price competition in a monopolistic group. This is illustrated as follows. In the following figure 3.13, with improved varieties LMN of the product, the firm faces more and more inelastic demand, as well as demand curve to go further up to the right, such as D1, D2, D2 and D3, D3. The producer can charge a higher price than before without experiencing any market contraction in the sale of his product. Or if he continues to charge the same price, he finds an increase in the demand for his product. So from this we can understand D1, D1, D2, D2 and D3, D3. How the product and the price goes on changing as the output is increased. Then next we have selling cost. The expenditure incurred by a firm on advertising and sales promotion of its product is known as selling cost. According to Chamberlain, selling costs include advertising in its many forms, salaries of salesmen, and the expenses of sales departments and sales agencies, window displays and demonstration of all kinds. There are two kinds of advertising: promotional or informative advertising, manipulative or competitive or persuasive advertising. Promotion or informative advertising. According to Chamberlain, ignorance of the product on the part of the consumer is an important reason for advertising. Buyers may lack information as regards the different sellers in a given line of product and the differences in the quality of their products. Therefore, a seller may resort to informative advertising. That is, he may describe the quality and price of his product and thereby try to influence the shape and location of the demand curve. By spreading information about the product through advertising, the firm's demand curve shifts to the right and becomes less elastic. Manipulative, competitive, persuasive advertising. Each firm under monopolistic competition tries to convince the buyers that its product is better than those of the others in the group. It seeks to increase the demand for its product by increasing the amount of advertisement expenditure and through it, persuading the buyers that its brand of the product is of superior quality than others. Thus, this is a competitive advertising which is aimed at attracting the customers to their product and veering them away from the customers to their product, closely related products of the rivals. Thus, the fundamental aim of all competitive advertising is to attract the consumer's attention and to imprint the name of a particular product on his mind and to increase the sales of one firm at the expense of others. Such competitive advertising by a firm often proves to be successful in its objective of increasing the demand for a particular brand of the product, and as a result of advertising, demand curve facing an individual firm shifts to the right. This implies that at a given price, greater quality or quantity of the product can be sold. Different distinction between selling costs and production costs. According to Chamberlain, production costs include all those expenses which are incurred to manufacture and provide a product to the consumer to meet his given demand or want, while selling costs are those which are incurred to change, alter or create the demand for a product. Production costs include manufacturing costs, transportation costs, and cost of handling, storing and delivering a product to the consumers. Selling costs include all outlays made in order to secure a demand or market for the market. Production cost creates utilities in order that demands may be satisfied. Selling costs create and shift the demand themselves. That is, of all the costs incurred in the manufacture and sale of a given product, those alter the demand curve for it. Selling costs and those costs which do not are production costs. According to Chamberlain, those costs which are made to adapt the product to the demand are costs of production costs. Those who are made to adapt the demand to the product are costs of selling costs. When production cost increases, the supply of the product increases. When selling cost increases, the demand for the product increases. In practice, production cost and selling costs are intermixed and it is difficult to separate one from the other. However, in determining the price, it is obvious that production costs and selling costs may be covered by the firm if it is to remain in the business. Average selling cost ASC and marginal selling cost MSC. ASC is equal to TSC upon Q, where TSC is equal to total selling cost, Q is equal to output, MSC is equal to TSC n minus TSC n minus 1. The ASC curve is U-shaped and the MSC curve passes through its minimum. Combined cost. The combined cost is the summation of production cost and selling cost. CAC is equal to APC plus ASC. CAC is equal to combined average cost. APC is equal to average production cost. ASC is equal to average selling cost. In the above figure 3.15, the vertical distance between CAC and APC is ASC. For instance, for OM level, the level of output, CM is the average production cost and BM the average combined cost. BC is the average selling cost at OM level of output. Total production cost is OMCD and the total combined cost is OMDA. Therefore, ABCD measures the total selling cost. Equilibrium of a firm incurring advertising expenses. In the above figure 3.16, AR1 can be the demand curve or AR curve for the product. And APC is the average production cost curve, which does not include any selling or advertising cost. Let equilibrium output be OQ1, where MC cuts MR1 from below, and price determined be OP1. The profit earned is BP1 EC. Suppose the firm decides to undertake advertisement expenses. This advertisement expenditure will not only increase demand by shifting the AR curve to the right to AR2 and making it more inelastic compared to AR1, but will also add to cost. Therefore, the new combined AC curve includes advertising cost or selling cost. CAC. Now, equilibrium output is OQ2 and price charged is OP2, and profits have increased to GP2 DF. Excess capacity under monopolistic competition. The theories of Chamberlain monopolistic competition and Joanne Robinson's imperfect competition have revealed that a firm under monopolistic competition or imperfect competition in the long run equilibrium produces an output which is less than socially optimum or ideal output. This means that firms operate at the point on the falling portion of the LAC curve. That is, they do not produce the level of output at which LAC is minimum. This is illustrated as follows. In the above figure 3.17, the long run equilibrium of a firm under monopolistic competition is achieved when the demand curve LARNC becomes tangential to the LAC curve at point F, so that it earns only normal profits. Under such circumstances, a firm can reduce AC and hence price by expanding output to the minimum level of LAC, but it will not because its profits are maximized. Equality of MR with rising MC is attained at the level of output smaller than that at which its LAC is minimum. Society's productive resources are fully utilized when they are used to produce the level of output which renders LAC minimum. Thus, a monopolistically competitive firm produces less OQMC than the socially optimum or ideal output. That is the output corresponding to the lowest point of AC curve. This is the sharp contrast to the position of the firms in the long run equilibrium and a perfect competition, which operates at the minimum point of the LAC curve. The output produced under perfect competition is OQPC, the amount by which the actual long run output of the firm under monopolistic competition falls short of the socially ideal output, is a measure of excess capacity which lies unutilized between the distance between QMC and QPC. So, in this we have understood about the excess capacity and the price levels which will keep on changing after a certain point. It can be observed from the diagram that a firm under perfect competition produces socially ideal output, whereas a monopolistic competitive firm can expand its production and reduce its LAC to its minimum. The excess capacity is the peculiarity of monopolistic competition. The surplus capacity is never cast off, and the result is high prices and waste. According to Chamberlain, the theory of monopolistic competition affords an explanation of such waste in an economic system. Wastes which are normally referred to as wastes of competition. In fact, they could never occur under perfect competition. They are wastes of monopoly of the elements in monopolistic competition. So here we come to the end of monopoly. In the next class, we shall be starting with oligopoly.